Episode 1. What Lies Beneath the Lake?
In a barely noticeable corner of northern Europe, there was a small village. Its name, Eldenmoor. There were no parades here, no tourists ever came by. In the very center of the village, a lake stretched wide, clear, still, and strangely, motionless. Its surface was untouched by wind. No birds ever landed on it. No fish ever jumped from it. The villagers never went near it, but they never drained it either. Because everyone in Eldenmoor knew, the lake is not just water. And then, to this very village, came the man who would change everything, Nathan Sorrell. Nathan was a 33-year-old documentary filmmaker. He was fascinated by the supernatural. But to him, that fascination was nothing more than content. The thing that brought millions of views to his YouTube channel wasn't truth. It was crafting compelling fiction. His only companion was his cameraman friend, Jules, and their one goal: uncover the mystery of the lake that never ripples, and maybe gain a few thousand more subscribers. At the village entrance, they met an old woman. Her name, Agnes. Agnes's eyes were cloudy, but her gaze made something tremble inside Nathan. "You're going to the lake, aren't you?" Nathan smiled. He nodded with polite dishonesty. "Yes, just a few shots. We're filming a documentary." Agnes didn't smile. "Then I have only one warning. If you carry a question inside you, don't take it to the lake, because the lake will answer." Nathan laughed, but Jules stayed silent. Agnes's words didn't sound like baseless fear. They felt like a memory, an echo of something that had already happened. When they reached the lake shore, the air stopped moving. There was no breeze, not even the leaves stirred. Jules pulled out his phone to check. Wind speed, 0.0 meters per second. Nathan picked up a stone and tossed it into the lake. It didn't sink. It struck the surface. No sound. The stone stayed there, and slowly, it was pulled inward, as if someone had grabbed it from below. Nathan narrowed his eyes. "Nice trick. Some kind of bog effect. Maybe thermal properties?" "I don't know," said Jules. "But this isn't a natural phenomenon." As they walked away from the lake, each carried different feelings. Nathan was thrilled. "There's so much material," he said. "We start filming at first light." But when Jules returned to the hotel that night, a crow landed on his window. Its eyes were fixed straight ahead, but there was no one there. Nathan had a dream just before dawn. In the dream, he was in the middle of the lake. He looked into the water, but his reflection wasn't there. Only someone else's eyes, two black eyes, deep, foreign, and waiting, as if something beneath the surface knew his name. When he awoke, his forehead was drenched in sweat. And so, this is where our story begins. Nathan came to this village with questions, and would soon understand why the lake answers. But some answers don't let you live. Nathan woke up at 6 a.m., the perfect time to film the lake, when the light was softest and the lake was at its quietest. But Nathan didn't realize the lake was always quiet. Jules was still asleep, but throughout the night he had spoken a few times. He wasn't aware of it, but Nathan had heard him. 3 words, repeated in his sleep. "It's waiting. Below." Nathan didn't take it seriously at the time. Probably remnants of a dream. Maybe something from a movie Jules had watched. But in the hours to come, those words would take on a very different meaning. When they arrived at the lake, the air felt strange. The sun had risen, but there was no warmth. There was no morning fog, no birdsong. Nathan set up the camera, mounted the tripod. Jules held the microphone toward the surface of the lake. For the first 10 minutes, they said nothing. They simply recorded nature. The water remained perfectly still. But then, Nathan noticed something. On the camera screen, the lake seemed to be vibrating ever so slightly, not visible to the naked eye, but noticeable through the lens, as if the water was breathing from the inside. "This is amazing," Nathan said. "Viewers are going to lose it. The lake looks alive." At that moment, Jules was monitoring sound through his headphones. The natural sounds coming through the mic were normal. But suddenly he pulled off his headphones, his brow furrowed. "Nathan, there's something weird." "Like what?" "There's static in the audio, but there's no wind. The mic is picking up this rustling, but nothing around us is moving." Nathan brushed it off. He figured it would make a great effect. After all, he worked in fiction. Truth wasn't his concern. But for the first time, Jules felt afraid, because the rustling sound turned into a whisper, and that whisper was saying his name. "Jules! Jules!" After the shoot, they packed up the gear. Returned to the hotel, Nathan immediately opened his laptop. He transferred the footage from the camera. But something was missing. In the video, Nathan wasn't there. The scene where he stood by the lake, right in front of the camera. The camera had been rolling. The audio was recorded. But in the footage, there was only the lake. No one appeared. As if Nathan had never been there. "This is impossible," said Jules. "Maybe the file got corrupted," Nathan muttered, trying to brush it off. But deep down, he felt a knot in his throat. He remembered the dream from the night before. The eyes without a reflection. The absence of his own image. "Whatever is recording the water doesn't recognize me," he thought. "I'm invisible to it. Or maybe it's starting to erase me." Night fell. Jules went to bed early. He was tired but restless. Again, he spoke in his sleep. But this time, Nathan recorded it. Jules repeated the same sentence, 11 times without pause. "Don't look down. Don't look away. The lake doesn't call you. You let it in." And at exactly 4:06 a.m., Jules's eyes suddenly opened. But something was wrong. His pupils were dilated, yet his gaze was empty. "Nathan," he said, "it saw you too." Nathan woke up late that morning. Jules was already gone. It wasn't even clear if he had returned to the room at all. His bed was made. But on the pillow, there was a damp mark, as if someone hadn't rested their head there. But the surface of the lake had. Nathan checked his phone first. No messages from Jules. He called. The phone was off. But then he remembered Jules's eyes from the night before. Vacant. Unrelenting. And the last thing he had said. "It saw you too." Nathan made a decision. He would look for answers. In the village. The person he trusted the least, but who knew the most, was Agnes. He went to her small stone house on the edge of the village. The door was open. When Nathan stepped inside, the old woman's eyes looked as if they had been waiting for him. "Jules is gone, isn't he?" said Agnes. "He was called in his sleep. If the water calls you, you can't come back." Nathan didn't want to believe what he was hearing. But still, he asked, "What is this lake? What's beneath it?" Agnes closed her eyes. She walked to the corner of the room and pulled out an old box. Inside was a weathered journal, its pages yellowed with time. On the cover, just one letter, E. Agnes handed it to him. Before Nathan could say a word, she continued. 80 years ago, a child went missing here. His name was Elias. He was 10. Last seen near the lake, but his body was never found. Nathan swallowed hard. He opened the journal. On the first page, in a child's handwriting, it read, "I can hear the voice under the water." As he flipped through the pages, innocent notes written with curiosity slowly gave way to darker lines. "Last night, the water called me. I was there in my dream, but I could breathe. There's something down there. It's asleep, but it hears me. It used my mother's voice, but it wasn't her. If I don't come back, don't look into the water." Nathan's hand trembled. He thought of the things he had dreamed. Not seeing his own reflection. Those eyes in the dark. And Jules whispering, "Don't look down." Agnes, without breaking eye contact, whispered, "The lake doesn't give answers. It only uses you." Nathan stood up. He slipped the journal into his pocket. "If Jules is beneath the water, I'm going to bring him back." Agnes only nodded. "And that is exactly why you won't return." Nathan spent the night reading Elias's journal. Near the back pages, he found a small, hand-drawn map. It marked a spot on the western shore of the lake, an area the other villagers carefully avoided. Beneath the marking, a single sentence was written. "The door beneath the stones does not open, but it listens." The next morning, Nathan packed his gear. Not the camera or microphone, just a flashlight, Elias's journal, and his thick-soled boots. He walked west. The western shore of the lake felt different. Here, vegetation was nearly absent. The ground was dry, the air silent, no birds in sight. As if this part of the land wasn't outside the lake, but inside it. At the marked spot, he found a massive stone slab, partially buried in the earth. It looked natural, but when Nathan touched it, he knew. The surface was smooth. It had been cut. He examined the area closely. When he dug into the soil beside the stone, he uncovered an old metal ring, buried, but still movable. He pulled it with effort. Suddenly, the ground gave way, and underneath, stone steps emerged, covered in moss, but fully intact, leading downward. Nathan turned on his flashlight. He peered inside. Damp, cold, like a void breathing deep beneath the earth. He took his first step down. The staircase was long. With every step, it felt as though the stones beneath his feet echoed. But it wasn't sound echoing. It was thought. Everything he thought seemed to bounce back at him. Is this real? Could Jules be here? Will I ever make it back? And then, a voice, very far, very deep, very clear. No. When he finally reached the bottom, Nathan found a narrow chamber. The walls were stone, but they were covered in symbols. Circles, eyes, and one symbol repeated over and over. 0 with stroke, the sign of void. The same one on Elva's door. The same in Elias's journal. The same phrase Jules had murmured in his sleep. As Nathan scanned the room, something caught his eye. On one wall, there was a drawing that didn't look carved, but scratched in haste. A child's figure, covering its head with both hands. Beneath it, an inscription in an old tongue. Nathan read it aloud. Those who see, go silent. Those who do not hear, live. And then, another sound, not in his ear, behind him, Jules's voice. Nathan. He turned. No one there. He swung his flashlight toward the walls, and in the shadow upon the stone, a silhouette appeared. Nathan froze. The flashlight flickered. The figure didn't move. But with each step Nathan took, its eyes glowed in the dark. It looked like a child, but it had no face. Nathan stepped back. His foot slipped. He fell flat on his back. The flashlight hit the ground and went out. Just as he was swallowed by total darkness, a whisper filled his ear. "You brought a question. Now the lake will answer." The time Nathan spent in the darkness was impossible to measure. When he opened his eyes, he was still lying on the stone floor of the chamber. But something had changed. The flashlight was off. The air felt colder, wetter. Time itself seemed different. He stood up. His left wrist ached. But what truly caught his attention was the silence. Not an absence. A kind of waiting. It was as if the stones around him weren't breathing, but listening. New markings had appeared on the walls, ones he hadn't seen before. Nathan reached out in the dark and touched one. The stone felt warm. Suddenly, a voice rose from inside the wall. "Nathan!" It was Jules's voice, but muffled, as if he were underwater, drowning. Nathan jolted. He pressed closer to the walls. "Jules, are you there?" No answer. But then, another voice, deeper than a whisper, not external but echoing inside his head. "You asked. We listened. Now it's your turn. You must enter." Nathan turned to leave the chamber. He headed for the staircase. But the stairs were gone. The doorway hadn't closed. It had vanished. In its place, there was a pool of water cut into the stone floor. Small, but impossibly deep. Dark, but faintly glowing from within. Nathan stood still. And he understood. This isn't the way to the lake. It's the way into it. He remembered Elias's journal. One of the final entries read, "One day I'll return. But not through the lake. From beneath it. Because below is quieter than above." Nathan removed his boots, gently set his jacket on the ground. He took a breath and stepped into the water. It wasn't cold, not in the way he expected. The water didn't touch his skin. It touched his mind. The deeper he went, the more the ringing began in his ears. At first, it was meaningless. Then, he realized. They were sounds from his memories. His mother's laughter, a childhood fight, his first lie, his first loss. The lake wasn't speaking to him. It was reading him. Then, a new voice. Very close. As if whispered directly into his ear. "You cannot return." He didn't know how long he remained underwater. But eventually, he opened his eyes and found himself in the center of the lake. Not the real lake. A void beneath it. Floating in air, but without falling. Someone stood before him. Slowly they turned. It was Jules. But not Jules. His skin was pale. His eyes like glass. His lips didn't move, but his voice filled the space. "Nathan, it's your turn now." Nathan tried to step back, but his body wouldn't move. Jules didn't come closer. Instead, from the depths, another figure began to rise. A child. Elias. Their eyes met, and Elias spoke. "I asked for the answer, but I didn't know the cost." Then he extended his hand toward Nathan. "Now it's your turn. The lake knows you now." When Nathan took Elias's hand, he didn't feel water. He felt emptiness, as if it wasn't his body being held, but his memory, his thoughts, his fears, his memories, all tangled together. Eyes open, he was in one place. Eyes closed, another. But now, Nathan was in both at once. A structure emerged, underwater, but not sunken. A massive building made of stone. No windows, but its walls seemed to breathe. And there wasn't a single crack. Elias walked inside. Nathan followed. The corridors were long. The stone walls shimmered with moving lines. Not drawn in the past, but being drawn in the present. With every step, new symbols appeared. With every breath, new shapes formed. And they were all connected to Nathan's mind. Elias stopped at a room. The door opened on its own. Inside was a table. And on that table, Nathan's childhood notebook. Impossible. Lost years ago. No one even knew it existed. But there it was. He opened it. On the first page, as if freshly written. Question. Why am I here? He turned the page. There was an answer, but not in his handwriting. Answer. Because you asked. Elias turned to him. This place isn't the lake. This is the mind of the lake. People see the water, but not what's inside it. Nathan asked, Then why did you stay here? Elias didn't answer. He just pointed. At the end of the corridor, another room. Above the doorway, the symbol. Empty set void. Nathan walked inside. There was nothing, but also everything. A floorless space, endless gray, like a dream where you float without falling. And in the center, a presence, no form, no face, but a feeling. Nathan said nothing, didn't think, he simply waited, and the presence spoke. I am not wave, I am not surface, I am depth. You touched me, now I will touch you. Something entered Nathan's mind, but it didn't hurt. It was as if his entire life was being read, gently. His first fall, first kiss, first betrayal, first death. The presence scanned everything, and then whispered, Now ask me one more question. Nathan held his breath. Where is Jules? The answer came, not in words, but in a vision. At the deepest part of the water, a body floated, still, breathing, eyes closed, but alive. It was Jules. And the presence said one last thing. Eternal silence can be broken by one soul, but a replacement must be made. If you wish to take him, you must stay. Nathan didn't think, didn't weigh his options, but something inside him answered, Yes. At that moment, the presence withdrew. Elias vanished. The structure began to fall apart. Nathan didn't fall. He didn't rise. He simply replaced. The next morning, the villagers found a man by the lake, soaked, but alive. Eyes open, breathing, but silent. It was Jules. But in his eyes, something else lingered. A silence, not natural, not his own. From a distance, Agnes watched. She whispered. An answer was given. A question went silent. When the villagers found Jules by the lake, their first thought was, Thank God, someone came back. But Agnes only shook her head. No, she said. He didn't come back. He was replaced. Jules was taken to the village clinic. Physically, he was fine. Breathing, pulse, brain activity, normal. But he didn't speak, didn't react. Even with his eyes open, he was looking elsewhere. The doctors couldn't give a diagnosis, but Agnes could. Those who remain in the water do not speak, because their thoughts are no longer their own. Agnes told no one about Nathan's absence. No one asked, because in this village everyone knows. If the lake gives an answer, it takes a price, and that price is silence. But Agnes did do one thing. She opened a drawer, one she hadn't touched in years. Inside was an old notebook. On the cover it read, List of the Unreturned. She flipped through the pages, names and dates. 1942, Elias M. 1959, Nora L. 1977, Peter H. 1994, Emma V. And on the last line, she added a name. 2042, Nathan S. Before setting the pen down, she added a note at the bottom of the page. Not those who seek answers, but those who hear silence, remain. The lake was still again, its surface undisturbed. Birds still didn't land on it. But now the water looked darker, as if it had become not just a reflection, but an eye. After some time, the villagers brought Jules from the hospital to stay in Agnes's home. He wasn't alone anymore, but he still looked alone. When night came, Agnes left a small note in his room. If you're still in there, blink once. No response. But in the morning, there was a damp spot on Jules's pillow, and on the window glass a word was written in condensation. Question. That morning, Agnes walked to the lake early. She sat quietly by the shore, took out the old notebook. After a few minutes, she pulled a cassette from her pocket, a voice recording Nathan had once left her. "He gave this to me," she murmured. "Not to ask, but to listen." She placed the cassette into the small tape player and pressed play. Nathan's voice echoed. "I didn't want to know what's beneath the lake. I just couldn't stand the silence anymore. The answer didn't matter. I just wanted someone to hear me. And now I hear it. Everyone. Everything. But no one hears me anymore." The lake's surface rippled, just slightly. Agnes lifted her head and whispered, "Someone hears you now, and the next one who comes won't be alone anymore." Agnes woke at 5:46 a.m., the hour when the lake is at its quietest and at its most open, not closed, but listening. She took nothing with her. No bag, no phone, no recorder, only Elias's journal in her hand, and in her pocket, the second copy of Nathan's voice recording. When she reached the lake, the sky was gray. There was no wind, no bird song, as if even nature was holding its breath. Agnes sat by the shore and looked into the water, but she didn't search for her reflection, because now she knew. The lake doesn't show you who you are. It shows what you're made of, what you've been shown to it. Meanwhile, in the village, Jules had woken up. His eyes were still fixed, still silent. But for the first time, he blinked. And then again, he remembered the note Agnes had left. "If you're still in there, blink." Slowly, Jules's hand slipped from beneath the blanket. He reached under the pillow and found a slip of paper. No one had put it there, but it was there. On it, a single sentence. "It's your turn." Back at the lake, Agnes leaned forward. She opened Elias's journal. Between the pages, she found one left blank, and in the center of it, a mark the size of a single water droplet. It wasn't her tear. It hadn't rained. She wrote on that page, "Nathan is here. His language has simply changed." And at that moment, for the first time, a ripple formed on the lake. Small, but sharp, as if the water didn't speak but confirmed. The lake does not speak, but it never forgets. Agnes looked up at the sky. "My time is up," she said, "but someone still listens." Then she stood, slowly removed her shoes, lifted the hem of her dress, took one step into the water, then another. And Agnes didn't disappear. She spread, like a shadow, like an echo. She became a new voice within the lake, and maybe now the silence beneath the water sounded a little more human. That night, Jules dreamed. Nathan spoke to him. Not in the same voice, but with the same feeling. "Don't worry about me," Nathan said. "Everything's in its place down here. The lake holds no answers. But now, I carry no more questions. You are not alone, because silence, when shared, stops being something to fear." The next morning, a young man appeared in the village square. He was dressed like a tourist, camera slung over his shoulder, notebook in hand. He spoke to the villagers, asked about Agnes, asked about the lake. No one answered. But on the door of Agnes's house, he saw an old inscription. "Don't ask. The lake already knows." The man paused, jotted something down in his notebook. "Begin project. New episode. What lies beneath the lake?" And the lake was silent again. But now that silence was more crowded than ever.